You're listening to Lighthouse Conversations, brought to you by Lighthouse Haven, a spiritual home for your awakening soul. Lighthouse Conversations is a show where awakening souls gather to be inspired, connected, and enlightened. Spiritual spark plug and host Chelly Canales, that's me, will guide you through the twists and turns of your journey to a safe haven where you are finally free to live your best light. Each episode contains a conversation with a guest who has gone through a spiritual awakening, detailing their unique and life-changing experiences in an intimate and candid way. Although everyone's experience is as unique as they are, we all share one common thread. We're all seeking something. So, come join us on this journey and be prepared to leave with resources that will supercharge you into inspired action. Here's today's episode. Hello, awakening souls. How's it going for you? I hope you're staying safe and healthy and that you're finding ways to find a sense of joy and kindness and connection with others during these isolating and trying times. For me, I've kind of been using the time to dig deep and kind of make peace with parts of myself that were not my favorite. It's about honoring the shadow and the light and the wholeness of who you are, because you can't have one without the other. And this whole episode is about being you everywhere you be. And it's not just the parts of you that you feel are acceptable to everyone else, right? It's about owning those parts of yourself too that maybe make you uncomfortable, but we can make peace with that. We can do work around that. So I'm finding that time really valuable. In this conversation with Laura Gilsdorf, which I think you'll enjoy greatly, she's lovely, we have some back and forth about what the world is going to look like after we get out of COVID-19 and what our individual pieces will be in that. So I want you to think about your individual piece in that. As things are breaking down, new things are being created. So what is your part of the creation? I can't wait to figure out what that is with you, and feel free to share and send me some notes because I'd love to hear it. Enjoy today's episode. And welcome to the show, Laura. It's good to have you.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I am so glad that you are recording with me again, because we did this before a few months ago, and my skills were not as together as they are now, I would say. And I had some technical difficulties and whatnot. So I'm really grateful that you wanted to come back and chat again. And I also, I do believe in divine timing. I believe that there's a time when certain things are ready to come out, and it's just part of the shift that's happening in the collective right now. And I'm really eager to talk to you about what's going on right now through this shift. I do want to talk about your awakening process and how you got, to where you are today. But I also just kind of want to catch up and hear from you. You're a mom, you've got a business going, you are, working hard every day, doing your spiritual practice. What's life like for you in these COVID-19 times?
It's in some ways it's totally different, and in some ways it's exactly the same is kind of how I feel at any given moment. I do have the luxury in that I'm used to working from home, so I don't have that shock factor to deal with. But at the same time, I was used to sending my kid to school. So I got, ample alone time, and I'm a human creature that enjoys her alone time.
Fair enough.
From time to time, just that space to be. And, I engage and interact with people all the time, whether it's over Zoom or face to face. And so the moments that I do have my solitude, I cherish and I relish. And so now it's a little different because kiddo is home all the time. And for those of you that don't know me, I have a 10-year-old son, and it is just the two of us all the time. And so, it's definitely been, it's been a shift. Let's just say it's just been a shift. And we had 3 weeks of no school and no anything, right? And no knowing of what was going to happen. And then luckily today we got a little bit of reprieve and a little bit of normalcy back into our world, and online school started today. So we're just kind of navigating the waters together. What does this look like? And, there's been some mom guilt on myself at times, and how does this look? And I think it was the very first Monday of the first week. I checked in with a bunch of my other mom friends, and I just said, how's everybody doing? Like, we knew that they weren't going to school for 3 weeks, but we didn't have quarantine at that point in time. We
Right.
didn't know all the bits and pieces of what was to come. And it was interesting because I had, between 5 different moms, so many different reactions. There was the first mom I reached out to who was like, automatically like, oh, I don't think we're going back to school, so I started homeschooling today. And like, my mind was blown. Literally, my mind was blown in that moment. And I was like, what? Not going back to school? Of course they're going back to school. And you're homeschooling? Like, what kind of overachieving mom are you? So I just had a moment with myself. um, and then there was just the other moms that were like, yeah, like, let us know if you need anything. And the others that were like, oh, we're quarantining starting today. And you just kind of ran the gamut of it.
Yeah.
So in the parenting community, I think we just kind of did the best we could and rallied. And then the thing that really got me, I'll tell you, the moment that got me was when they announced bars and restaurants were closing
Yeah.
till April or till May. And it wasn't even the fact that they were closing that I was upset about or that bothered me. It was the realization that if bars and restaurants are closing until May, that my kid is going to be home
Right.
until May.
Yeah. Yes. And it's like you connected the dots and saw through it, and you're saying, yep, okay, I can tell this is coming. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then, I went down the rabbit hole of, it's not just May. Like, there's no way they're going to take them to May 11th and then bring them back to school for 3 weeks. And I was like,
No.
I'm with my kid for the next 6 months. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Homeschooling. I was never the parent that ever aspired to be a homeschool teacher. It was not my jam. I was clear about that. But then here I was, working from home, having a kid at home, and thinking like, oh, and now I get to take on another job. Sweet.
And every family does this differently, and there is no wrong or right way to do it.
No,
It's about following, I think, your
absolutely.
intuition, right? And your gut, and saying like,
Absolutely.
it's okay if it's not perfect, right?
Absolutely. And that's the thing. Like, I mean, the mom that took on homeschooling day one, like, more power to her. She's got that tenacity and that grit and that, like, not even tenacity and grit, but just the desire to do something like that, then that's amazing. We need more moms in the world like that.
Absolutely.
But we also need the moms like me and the moms that are just doing the best they can and the moms
Yes.
that are doing everything in between, right? It takes all of us
It
to
takes
create that
everyone.
diversity in the world. So,
Yes, it does. And it's like, the number one thing I think that's going to help us through all of this is not to feel any shame that we're not doing it like someone else.
exactly.
That my life doesn't look like that, then there must be a problem. No, no, no.
No.
And I think it's part of what's shifting in consciousness too. It's not like a structured box, and if you don't fit in, you're out, you're wrong. I
Yeah,
think that, and we can talk about this too. And I actually really would love to hear your perspective on the cultural shifts that are happening, because to me,
absolutely.
this time out was meant because the systems have become unsustainable. We can't continue in a world where the masculine is so overly dominant that the feminine aspects of flow and intuition and empathy and compassion don't get a chance to come to the table either. And I think that's
Hmm.
created such a disproportionate balance on one side that it can't survive anymore. And so we're on to, in my belief and in my vision, that things are shifting. What are your thoughts on the change?
Yeah. So, I mean, just on the change in general, the one thing I can't say enough right now to anybody I have this conversation with is, when all of this started happening, like, I mean, I follow a lot of spiritual communities. I'm part of a lot of spiritual light workers and different things. And truth be told, like, there was a lot of people coming out of the woodworks like, oh, I'm getting downloads left and right, and I've got this message, and this big thing is coming for us. And there was like all these like really big messages.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't really getting anything, to be honest. Nothing was coming through. I wasn't getting any big aha moments. And at first I was a little frustrated. And I was like, well, why are they getting all these things and not me,
Yeah.
But again, no comparison, right? Whether it's parenting or your spiritual capacities, no comparison.
Mm-hmm.
But when I really took a moment to get connected to the earth and grounded and rooted and everything and centered, I realized that there had been a message for me the whole time. And that message for me was like every time I went to a space looking for what does this mean? What's next? What's going to be the outcome of this? Where is this going? I just kept getting the message to just stay here.
Mm.
Just
Yes.
stay here. And like that really invited in the true nature of presence. Because look, we as human species, we get really caught up. We get caught up in the stories. We get caught up in the to-dos. We get caught up in so much of the world. And rightfully so. The world has a lot to offer. So of course we get caught up in it all. But here we are now in this time where we're told to stay home, to stay separate, to go spend some quality time with yourself.
Yeah, that's it.
And we can't let go of that almost addiction to what does this all mean, where is this all going, what are we going to come of it, right? And look, none of that's wrong. I'm not saying any of that to be like, oh, the people who are going down that road are wrong or anything. Of course not. But what I'm being called to, and the people in my circles, is to actually use this time to cultivate presence like you've never cultivated it before, to really check in with yourself, check in with your business, check in with your family, check in with your romance or whatever you have that's creating your reality, and just see where you can invite something newly just from that idea of all that matters is right here right now in front of me.
Oh, yes, that's beautiful. That and it really rings
Yeah.
true. Absolutely. Being in the moment, a lot of our distress, and I read a lot of Eckhart Tolle. It's like because we're thinking of something that already happened, or we're worried about
Hmm.
something that's gonna happen. But how are you in the
Exactly.
moment? You're sitting in that chair, you're comfortable, the temperature's good, you're having a conversation. Like, are you good now? Are you good now? Are you good in this moment?
Yeah.
And being, that presence is something that our society is so good at escaping. It's like I'm
Hmm.
gonna numb it out, or I'm gonna scroll it out, or I'm gonna, use any manner of distraction to take myself away from the present moment. And now that
Hmm.
people are being forced into that moment, it's like, oh my God, what do I do? And then it
Exactly.
can be a really distressing time, but it can also be a time to say, okay, what am I going to do? Maybe I have to do nothing. Maybe I'm meant to sit on this couch and watch 7 hours of Netflix. You know what? If that's what you need, maybe you're so tired from being
Yeah,
on this wheel of achievement. Why not take that time for yourself?
absolutely. And here's the thing. Look, we were all part of a collective that brought this into the world,
That's right.
right? So you can look at your individual microcosm of your reality and just stop for a moment and be like, okay, well, if I was part of the collective that invited this in, why? What energy was I that had this come in for me and my reality and my world? And what gift is there in this for
Mm-hmm.
me? Because a lot of times we will ask for things over and over and over again, giving no mind, or like maybe we give some mind to like, I want it to show up this way. But then there's always a moment where something big like this shows up and you're like, okay, well, if I was part of this collective, then is this what I've been asking for showing up in another way? And if it is, then what's the gift in that for you?
What is the gift in that for you? I think the questions are so important. The curiosity, you don't have to say, give me the answer. What's the answer? What's the answer? It's just like, what questions can I ask? And put them
Hmm.
out there and just, you'd be surprised. Well, you wouldn't be surprised because you know how this works, but like the way that things show up in the most unexpected and divine ways, things that you're like, I never thought it would show up like that. But yeah, that's it.
But
And
here
it's
we
about
are.
being open to it. Yeah, it's and allowing that vision to be big enough for it to show up in whatever way is best for all concerned for it to show up.
Exactly. And, going back to where you started this with like the shift and the masculine and the feminine and all those things, like because we were all part of the collective that brought this in, we're all going to be part of the collective that takes us out of this, right? Maybe some of us will choose to leave the planet, and that's okay
Mm-hmm.
too, if that's what they choose,
Mm-hmm.
however they choose to do that. But I know for myself, I'm not going anywhere yet, right? So I plan on being part of the collective that shifts something and changes something. And if we look at the history of the world, and any time a pandemic has come in or any major event, it's it never quite, the puzzle pieces never go back quite exactly the same way. There's always
Right.
something that shifts and changes. And so I would invite anybody listening to this or any of your followers to just really check in with themselves and be part of that collective to say, how do I want this to go? If I want to invite in more femininity and flow and the ability to just adapt, that's one of the
Yes.
biggest things about this particular pandemic. And granted, I've never participated in another pandemic, at least in this body. So
Right.
we won't talk about that. But, um, is you have to pivot. If you don't pivot, if you hold into your masculine roots and say, this is how it's going to go and this is how it has to go, and that's the only way, and there only is one way, you're not going to
You're
survive,
not going to
at least
survive.
not thrive, right? But if
Yeah.
you want to thrive, it's that ability to invite in that feminine that allows you to navigate the waters a little bit more freely, to have a little bit more ease with yourself and the
Yes.
world and your
Being
community.
being in flow over being fixed, and that is such an important skill to have in general, and it's been, you know, just like drilled into us for so long. Like, you set your course and you, nothing stop you, you go, you're on your way. If we do
Yeah,
that, like, tell me how likely is it that it's going to turn out the way you want, in the way you want? It just isn't. But you're
yeah,
so right. I think being adaptive is such a gift of this time. We're all doing things we never thought we'd be doing. I mean, it was so funny. I was just picking up food from a restaurant, last week, and all of the parking lot slots that were normally filled were numbered, and they had like makeshift signs with markers posted against the fence. And I'm like, I never thought I would witness, this. I started taking pictures of like, oh, this line at Trader Joe's. I'm outside. We're all wearing masks. We're 6 feet behind each other, and it's almost to the end of the block. Like, I need to remember this, that there was a time when it happened, and there was a time we all did our best to get through it.
yeah, absolutely.
Whew.
Absolutely. Because I just lit up when you were saying that. It's not, yeah, this is the one and only time we're going to experience this moment.
Yes. And how lucky are we to have things like technology where we can talk to each other face to face from miles away, be able to have this conversation and connect, even though we can't connect in person. And you think about pandemics from other times where they truly were so isolated, that they couldn't have this kind of connection. So there
Absolutely.
are certainly gifts in that. And there's also, I want to talk about the gifts of having a spiritual practice, and how, like, how's that shown up in your life in terms of your son and what he's dealing with, and your own
Yeah.
day-to-day self-care.
Yeah. So for me, I meditate daily, or I at least try to. I'm not going to say every single day, but my meditation practice now looks a little different than it once did.
Mhm.
Sometimes I meditate while I'm on my bike. Sometimes I meditate while I'm raking the leaves. Sometimes I
Yes.
meditate while I'm doing the dishes. Sometimes I sit on my bum on a pillow in front of my puja and I meditate that way. And so it looks different. Sometimes I wake right up and I stay in that position and I just let myself be and I be present. So the meditation practice looks different any given day, any given moment. Right now, I'm part of a bigger like 20 to 20 meditation inside of the coaching work I do. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a little
Yep.
bit more intentional practice getting invited in. But that's one piece. And outside of that, it just shifts and changes. For me, I have this ability to adapt with whatever's needed. So one day might look like I'm I'm at my computer working for 10 to 12 hours, and that's where the energy is. So
It's
I'm
flowing.
there with the energy. And then other days I'm like, I'm going to go lay in bed next Netflix and chill, or
Perfect. Yeah.
whatever that phrase is,
Yep. Netflix and
for
chill.
6 hours, right? And the thing is like inside of the spiritual practice, the biggest thing for me, especially in a time like right now, is looking at my thought patterns, looking at like what are all the judgments, points of views, and conclusions that I have that are showing up around
Mhm.
this, and the ability to not make myself or anyone else wrong for however we're doing this.
Yep.
Your practice is going to be totally different than mine, and
Absolutely.
that's perfect because you know your body. So I think for anybody who's looking to invite in a spiritual practice, it's just have a little fun with it and do a little bit of exploration. Try
Yes.
some things on for size, see what fits, see what feels good, because spiritual practice should feel good. It
Absolutely.
should
It should
leave you
fill
lit
you.
up,
Yes. And
you
not
know?
make you feel like this is a chore. I was told I had to do this in order to feel good. So, no, no. And there's
Yeah,
so many, like you said, so many ways to do it. And it's about finding that thing that lights you up and going where the energy flows. Just like you said, it's like if it's 10 to 12 hours today, because it is all like boom, boom, boom. The ideas are coming, the focus is there. Yes, use that because we're very cyclical creatures and we're put
hmm
into a very linear society. So, why not do, all this work on one day and then really rest another day? That is actually how it should be. And I do think that's one of the shifts that's going to happen as we get back into normal societies, that
yeah,
workplaces are going to start honoring more the cyclical nature of people, women
absolutely.
particularly, and saying, you know what, I don't need to be at my desk from 9 to 5 and look at my clock and be like, okay, well, I'm done for the day. It's like, if I need to leave for a 2 hour lunch to go and have a connection with somebody to really find out what their needs are. And like, to me, that is time well spent instead of, well, you had 1 hour and you have to be back and you have to arrive by this time. And if you're late,
Absolutely.
then, you're not valuable. Everybody has a different cadence in terms of how they operate. So I'm kind of
Absolutely.
envisioning, yeah, like more forgiveness for and more allowance for this type of way of showing up.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's happening already, but like what I see is the businesses out there have done an excellent job adapting straight
Yeah.
away to
Hmm.
what is needed and what's being asked for. And, yeah, unfortunately for some people it doesn't look so great, and there's been the downsides of furloughs and things like that, but we still have the community. We still got lots of support. We've got government
Hmm.
stepping in. We've got all the things. But if we're looking into the future and projecting something, it's exactly what you're saying. There's just this, it's not going to just go back to how it was. It's not like, oh, offices are open. Guess what? Be back at work 9 a.m. Here you go. Like, there's going to be some conversations for them to have with
Yes.
all of their employees and for themselves of like, what really serves the company, what really serves the world, because that's the other piece about right now is individually, as a company, as a community, we are all turning to this idea of what serves
Yes. Yes. Yes.
more so than we ever have.
Hmm.
It's not so much about me and what do I get out of this and how am I going to benefit or how am I going to fail or any of that. It's people are, I mean, are shifting gears. They're producing new products. They're supporting people in new ways. They're offering new jobs. We're shifting and we're changing so much all out of the service of other humans. And that's probably one of the most beautiful
Yes.
gifts in this whole thing.
I would agree with you. And I was speaking to an industry the other day about how these cultural shifts, what that means for your business moving forward. And it is very, that was one of the tenets of the me first or my company first or my bottom line first versus how are my employees? How are my customers? Like if I'm not looking out for them through a heart lens as well as a bottom line lens, they're not going to want to stay. This time has awakened something in people because they've had a chance to stop and look at it and say, wait a minute. Okay, this doesn't seem right. Why can't I work from home? I'm working from home right now, so I don't understand why that can't continue. It helps my work-life balance. I'm better able to take care of my kids. I can get up an hour earlier, have an hour time by myself at home, take care of everything I need to, go for a run, and still rock my job. It's
Hmm.
doable. And so if and I think a lot of this has to come from the top down. And so it'll be interesting to see that grip loosen a little bit, because they're going to be hearing from a lot of people saying, we can't go back to business the way it was. I can't
Yeah.
do this anymore.
And look, it might not actually be from the top down anymore.
Hmm. Tell me more.
Well, we've got a whole collective of people who are experiencing something totally new right now. And it's always been top down. That's always how it's
Yeah.
operated.
Yep.
But like,
The
I
old
mean, you
model.
see all the things on social media right now of like who's on the front lines right now. It's not the top people, but like
The Yes. And
the
these are the
people
people we
who
can't live without right now.
who've always sustained our
Right.
society. But now we have the other caca cleared out of the way to where they get their limelight. They get the moment to shine, to
Yes.
say, we have been here for you all along,
Yes. And
all
there needs
along.
to be a
And
shift.
you didn't acknowledge it. But now you have to acknowledge it because you don't have celebrities to look at. You don't have sports to look at. You don't have all these flashy, shiny things.
Mm-hmm.
You're just getting back to the roots of the core of like, what do I need to survive? Right. And so I think that just by the nature of that, it would just behoove me to not create some sort of shift where it's not just top down anymore, where
Yeah.
it's more universal, integral of like, how do we take care of everybody? Because
Yes.
that's the message I keep seeing everywhere. And the thought that I keep having inside of like creating a new world and everything is it keeps coming back to money and the concept of money.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And it's just such an interesting thing because so much of our world revolves around it. And look, I'm not saying I have the answers to anything, but if I sit and I look and I'm like, okay, if our financial systems crashed, do we still have the goods and the services we need to take care of people?
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. I mean, we still have all the materials we need to take care of the roads somewhere. We have all the food somewhere. We have all the, like, I mean, it's just kind of like blows my mind a little bit to think how if we had to, we could keep going.
Yeah.
And we
Yes.
actually,
Yes.
like, we live in a world that's so abundant that we have everything we need already to take care of every single human that exists on the planet.
And what gets in the way? People's agendas, people not allowing things to get to the people
Yeah.
who need them, which is such a, it's being exposed in bigger ways than ever before. Things that were previously hidden are now being revealed to us. And that's another one of my tenets, is that like you can't operate from a hidden agenda and expect to be successful. It's about
Hmm.
transparency. And I'm so glad these things are coming up, but it's so infuriating how our nurses are being asked to walk into rooms that have the virus without any protection, or who are asked to work without pay, or who are asked to put themselves on the line because there are stacks and stacks of supplies that they need and they're not
Hmm.
getting them.
Yeah.
That's not acceptable.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And it's like, look, if you look at, I'm all for somebody creating out of this. Like that's half of what
Yeah.
I do and half of what I coach my people on
Yeah. Yeah.
is like, cool, here's an opportunity to create, go out and create. And so I'm not trying to sit here and make money the bad guy or any of that. That's not
No.
the case whatsoever. I actually love money and I think everybody
Yes.
can have all the money that they want. But it's just really using it to look at a bigger picture of how am I operating within all of this? And if I'm operating this way, then how are other people operating? And then bigger and then bigger and then bigger. And there's
Yes.
going to be systems and structures that have already broken down. If not, like they're going to be broken down soon. I mean, schools have been broken down, money systems have been broken down, medical's getting broken down
Hmm.
right now. So it all is going to have to get rebuilt in a way. So that just goes back to just putting yourself in that position to say, well, I get to have a piece of this creation.
Yes, that's
So
right.
what do I want that piece to look like?
That's right. And I think a part of that, asking yourself that question, also brings up the things within us that need to be looked at or healed, things that maybe we haven't addressed for so long because we haven't had the time to sit and look at it. And so when you think, what do I
Absolutely.
see my vision is? What do I want for the world? A lot of it comes from your experience, what you've seen in your life, what you've encountered, and how those things that make you angry, those things that touch your heart, those things that make you sick in your gut, like how are they showing up and why are they showing up? So it's like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think this injustice should happen to this group of people. So okay, why is that? Is it the injustice itself? Is it because you've seen it happen to someone you love or to yourself over time? Like, what are those things that are hanging on within us that can finally be taken a look at? So it's a very, very rich time. I
Yeah.
know we haven't gone too much into like your journey, but like in a
Yeah.
nutshell, getting to where you are today, where you're helping people, you're coaching people, you're guiding them, and you've got, a practice that's allowing you to have the kind of life that you want.
Hmm.
Tell me about getting to this point.
Yeah, sure. So, I've known since I was a little girl that there was something different about
Girl, me
me.
too.
But I never I would go in and out of feeling the freedom and the ability to really explore that and express it and all the things. And little by little, as I got older, I got really stuck in the judgments and assessments of our society and other people, and feeling like I just had to follow the path, that we spoke about. um, and I created some really sticky, messy situations for myself in life. Not my own, but someone who was very important to me having some severe drug issues, and lots and lots and lots of trauma and pretty deep, dark scenarios associated with that. And it really like brought me down to the depths. Like I was almost like the shell of a human. I had zero self-worth. I would put myself in these precarious positions because I had learned that that was a way for me to receive love. And I didn't know how else to receive love at that point in my journey. But luckily, I got out of it. I got out of the situation. I got out of the mindset and started rebuilding myself, started refocusing on myself. And after a couple years, I ended up finding a woman who is now partner in crime, best friend. We do everything together. I'm her head coach and COO of her company, Tamara Ross. And so we teach collectively energetic self mastery. And I'd say of all the spiritual work I'd done prior, this is the one that like really had me take on myself in the most powerful way, to be willing to go to the depths of my soul and heal all the things that needed to be healed, to get right with myself about all the things that I created in my reality, and then to use that spiritual journey to then see how magical and wonderful this world is and this life and everything that it has to offer. So I began coaching with her, and in the process, I learned some different hands-on healing techniques that I started taking on with participants and various patients, and really blossomed and opened up to my psychic capacities. And the more I had to get all that pain and that heartbreak and that cage, like I always felt caged, and
Yes.
I thought it was other people caging me in, and I realized that was part of my story that I was perpetuating, but it was really just me that was caging myself in.
Yeah,
And
I
so
can
once I
relate.
could see that
Mm-hmm.
and start coming out of it, then everything started flowing and magic started getting created. And not just for me, but for everybody around me too, because I was noticing the more that I expanded myself, the more that it expanded something for the people around me without them even having to do anything. And I was
Isn't
like,
that amazing?
oh, this is magic.
The ripple
And
effect. Yeah.
so, yeah, it was just great. And, so that's kind of my journey in a nutshell. So I coach in this year-long program with energetic self-mastery. I do some one-on-one work as well, and both in coaching and hands-on healing. I do a little real estate here and there, and I entertain some woo-woo magic in my real estate business. So I'm
Love
pretty
that.
selective in the clients I take on over there. But yeah, that's pretty much my journey in a very small nutshell.
But it does say so much about, where you've been and how you got here, and that, dark night of the soul that took you, through it and not around it or bypassing it. You had to go in it. You had to do
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah,
here
and I'm
you
not
are.
afraid to say, for anybody who might be feeling the same way, I am not afraid to say that I had many a thought of ending my life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Many.
Yes.
I mean, more than I'd like to count, or maybe than I can count. I'm not sure, but I like to say that freely and openly
Yes.
because a lot of people don't want to say that. They're afraid to say it. I know I was afraid to say it. I was like, oh, they're going to take my kid away if anybody hears that, or whatever story somebody else is going to make up about you and your life and all the things. But, I don't necessarily, I don't have anything going on about it in a negative
Yeah.
way either. It's part of the journey. It was where I was at. I don't have those thoughts anymore because I went and I did the deep work and the healing and all of that. But it's not something to be ashamed of. And that's what
No.
I want people to
No.
know is it's part of the journey.
And please understand that I have also felt that many times in my life. You're not the first person on this podcast who has admitted that to me on this,
Yeah,
platform as well. People
I
who are
have no
incredible,
doubt.
people you would never think would ever entertain these feelings, but it's such a human thing, and it's not, you're right, it is nothing to be ashamed of. And it's good to freely talk about these things, because I think there's a shame that comes with things we keep in the dark. And if somebody's
Hmm.
in the dark about this, you're in the dark about this, I'm in the dark about this, and we don't talk about it, we both feel very tortured, because we
Exactly.
think there's something wrong with me. I'm the problem to be fixed, and no one else seems to be feeling this way. So why would I say anything and ostracise myself or make people think, like you said, I shouldn't have my kid? I
Yeah,
no.
exactly.
Bringing the
Exactly.
truth
And
to light is everything.
it's about, look, it's about full celebration of self. And we are dynamic beings.
Yeah.
We're not one dimensional beings. We are so dynamic. And so if we resist our darkness and make it wrong and pretend it doesn't exist and all of that, then what are we actually resisting and what are we creating as a result of it? I think because we are these dynamic beings, it's about celebrating the wholeness of who we are. And so many of us are seeking freedom and all these things. And that's part of it is like the freedom comes from loving yourself completely, your light and your dark.
Yes, that's it. That's it.
So, yeah,
Wholeness,
that's
showing
my
up
two
as you
cents.
are, not like, I'm going to shift gears because this person doesn't get me in this context, so I'm going to be this person over here.
Yeah.
No, no, let's just be honest and be us. And one of my favorite quotes, and I know Rebecca Campbell talks about this, a few teachers talk about this: you are not for everyone. You're not going to be for
Mhm.
everyone. And that doesn't make you wrong in any way, shape, or form. Some people will find that vibrational alignment and some people won't. And that's not something to be sad about, even though at first it kind of feels that way. It's like, well, why wouldn't they get this or like me or this?
Exactly.
And you know what? Not it. We're all made to be attracted to different things and be attracted to people that will help us on our journey, or help us become the best version of ourselves or not. It could
Right.
be any of those
Right.
things,
It
and
could
there's
be
nothing
any of
wrong with that.
that. And I mean, we could go down a million and one rabbit holes on
Yeah.
why we don't connect with certain people and why we do with others. And, I think it's just important to remember, just as far as your being, of like, just be you everywhere you be.
That's right.
I
Ooh,
mean, I can't
okay.
say that enough.
So if people would like to work with you, Laura, what would be the best way for them to connect with you?
You know, a couple different ways. I mean, they can reach out to me directly. I'm not taking a lot of one-on-one clients right now because my schedule is very packed, but you never know when the alignment's going to pull in just the right direction. But even if it doesn't align for us to work one on one, I do have my energetic self mastery program that you can join into. That's a year-long program and one of the most powerful programs I've ever come across. And then hands on healing. And so I'll link you to a couple different websites and, email and phone number and things like that where people can get a hold of me.
Perfect. Yep. I'll put that in the show notes. And yes, please reach out if you've got any questions or you want to talk to Laura or work with her. Please reach out. It's
Yeah,
been so great chatting with you. Thank you for this illuminating conversation. And yeah,
absolutely.
thanks for sharing your light.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to Lighthouse Conversations. If this show resonates with you, it would mean so much to have you rate, review, and share. Don't forget to follow us at chellycanales.com and on social media.